What's up, everyone? Back for another post-game episode of Locked On Bucks. Milwaukee have won 4 straight. It's incredible. They're streaky. They take care of the Magic. Maybe they'll be 82-0 if they play the Magic every single game. Who knows? But they absolutely handled them. They're up by 50 points at one stage in this game. Anyway, we're going to break it all down. There's some other interesting stuff to talk about. Frank's been tweeting. Frank's been messaging the DMs. I got to pick his brain about some of the stats, some of the things he's been looking up because the Bucks, as we hoped they would, are taking advantage of an easy stretch in the schedule. They needed to bank some wins, and they've done that. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Bucks. I'm your host, Kane Pittman. You can see and hear me on this show daily and also find my work over at ESPN Australia. And joining me today is the founder of brewhoop.com and longtime voice of the podcast, Franco Madino. And today's episode is brought to you by True Bill. True Bill is the new app that saves you money by helping you identify and stop paying for the subscriptions you don't want or need, and can even negotiate better deals on those you just want to keep. Speaking of subscriptions that you may have, we thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first listen of every single day. And if you haven't subscribed to Locked On Bucks on YouTube, you really should jump across and go and do that. But the Bucks beat down the Magic. I don't know what Orlando did the last couple of days in Milwaukee, but perhaps that Milwaukee nightlife got the Orlando Magic heading into this game, Frank. 123-92, they win. They were up by 41 points at halftime, which from my research, I think was a franchise record lead at halftime. This game was absolutely ridiculous. Some of the numbers are hilarious to look at. Is there anything in particular that stands out to you from this game? The Bucks, as I said, 4 wins in a row. They're 10-8. They're in the 7th seed. They're almost out of the play-in tournament zone. It's unbelievable times.
I mean, I was pretty annoyed. I mean, this was a great opportunity to get the Bucks. They had a negative point differential for the season coming into tonight's game, so pretty early on, you knew that was going to get flipped. But I mean, bench unit getting outscored 36-18 in the fourth quarter. I mean, come on, guys. Like, I had visions of a 50-point win, kind of pad the advanced stats, the Pythagorean win expectation. But they have to settle for, a slightly more modest 31-point win. Your guy, Justin Robinson, I think he was 1 for 19, 1 for his last 19 at one point, and then he hit 2 shots late to try to make sure that lead got back above 30. So I think between him and Jordan Nwora, they were the only guys that seemed to get a bucket in the fourth quarter. But yeah, I mean, there's almost what do you even say about this game, right? The Bucks did kind of whatever they wanted, and the Magic, could not stop turning the ball over. They couldn't make shots, and the Bucks had just, I mean, like so often when teams have these massive blowout wins, it's not because their best players have huge games. Giannis has 9 assists, 1 turnover in 24 minutes, 4 out of 12, only 12 points, but 7 guys score between 12 and 17 or 12 and 18 points. So yeah, I mean, again, just a complete wipeout, and to be honest, kind of nice to see it because, these last few games, including the Lakers game, let's be honest, they were all kind of harder than they needed to be. I think the Bucks, we saw them give up big leads against the Thunder and the Magic in the last 2 games that they were winning in control of. Didn't look like they were going to be bothered at all, and then in both games, they really took their foot off the gas. So tonight they, stomped their feet through the floor of the gas pedal. I don't know what the metaphor would be, and got out to such a big lead that it really didn't matter. And obviously none of the starters even came close to sniffing the floor in the fourth quarter, even with Orlando blowing the doors off the Bucks C team. They win the quarter 36-18 and lose by 31 points. Not often you're going to be able to say that. So yeah, just good to get a laugher. They're back above 500 at home at 5-4. They're now in an identical 5-4 at home and on the road. And obviously with Detroit coming in here to end this homestand, an opportunity to go a perfect 5-0, which, I think just in the grand scheme of, as we were saying, seeding and just clawing your way back into, okay, yeah, like we're not, we can't just sit around complaining about injuries all season long. At some point, you got to start winning games, and with the Bucks starting to get healthy, with Chris Middleton obviously back now, everyone pretty much except Brooke, and obviously Dante's still out, but yeah, beginning to look a little bit more like the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, I think we looked at this homestand, and of course, the Lakers game was a little bit tricky. We didn't know who was going to be playing. Chris Middleton was just coming back, but ultimately, it's sort of panning out to be the perfect sort of run in for Chris Middleton. And I actually thought that maybe the best part of this game was the fact that you were able to only get 23 minutes for Giannis. And there was a few little stretches in this game where I thought that Giannis was going to have to take out Mo Wagner again. So we should acknowledge the fact that Giannis and the Bucks were able to get through this 2-game set with the Orlando Magic without knocking out one of the players. The Magic were frustrated tonight, and to be fair, I mean, I understand why they were frustrated. I mean, they were just getting the beat down of a lifetime, and they didn't feel like they were getting any calls. Maybe they should stop flopping. I'm looking at you, Mo Wagner in particular. But this game, at least in the first half, it almost reminded me of some of the games we've seen against Detroit in the past where you're like, okay, yeah, this is a beatdown. This is a blowout. But I also kind of want this game to end just so nothing happens and there's no fights and there's no suspensions or anything silly like that.
I think a couple of years ago there was that period. I just remember saying something very similar about when they had played the Pistons like a bunch of times, and I don't know if they got like the whole series out of the way really early in the season, but it just felt like they had a bunch of games against the Pistons. I think this was when Blake was still there, and there was like more of that like weird negative energy, and the Pistons were still sort of trying to be good, and Andre Drummond was still around. Yeah, it was just a weird energy, and obviously they pounded the Pistons in the playoffs in the first year of the Bud era in early spring of 2019. So yeah, I sometimes like these little baseball style sets where the teams, now we've seen the last year, where teams play a couple times, and in a homestand, creates kind of a weird vibe about it. And I think when the teams are good, it's interesting, but when obviously it's a mismatch like between these two teams, maybe it's not always for the best. But yeah, I'd say just, I mean, again, like, nice to win some games and not have to put in 48 minutes of real effort to come away with a win. But by the same token, I'm it's going to be interesting to see when they finish up this homestand. Looking up at the schedule, there's some more legitimate challenges upcoming. And again, famous last words, right? Like, I don't want to tee things up here for a hugely disappointing loss against the Pistons, but certainly, starting to round into form a bit. And I thought probably the most encouraging thing about tonight, I mean, Jrue Holiday actually seeing shots go in, 8 out of 14 from the field. I think when you look at the guys that are healthy, at least, Drew's been maybe the guy that I've sort of had the most, again, quote unquote, concerns around. And so, not that you take a whole lot from a game like this, but it's just good I think for him to see the ball go through the basket, and a game high 18 points on 14 shots. And he's obviously struggled a fair bit. Still missed a couple of bunnies even in this game tonight, but overall, just hopefully this kind of starts him rolling in the right direction. Because let's be honest, you factor in the playoffs as well. It's been a while since we've seen Jrue consistently put the ball in the hole, and so when you think about the Bucks kind of getting back to their very best, it would be nice if you always kind of joke about the whole quote unquote debate about who's their Bucks second best player. But Jrue Holiday, when he's been playing like he's been playing of late, obviously Chris is just coming back from his COVID illness, but Jrue so far this year, he looked good in his first 2 games of the season. Then since then, it's been kind of like, Jrue, come on, man, like need a lot more from you than 13 points on sub 40% shooting from the field. So I think his playmaking's generally been pretty good, but again, when he's scoring, that's important. And I think some of the really stark on-off differences for Giannis can be mitigated when obviously Jrue and Chris are able to kind of carry more of that offensive load, especially when Giannis is off the floor.
Yeah, some of the numbers for Jrue this year have been just really ugly stuff. I mean, like the worst of his career stuff, actually, which is what makes it so bizarre. But when he knocked down a few shots today, Frank, I was listening to this sound. I could just hear that in my. Could you hear that, by the way? Oh,
No?
this
Was it
is
a bell?
this is terrible. It was like a ka-ching. It was a ka-ching sound
Oh,
because I was hearing that sound when Jrue Holiday was knocking down shots, but that's also the sound of another sale on Shopify, which is the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your business. I can't believe this sound didn't work. You got to. I really set that up beautifully. It was fantastic. One of my best intros to an ad read. But in case you don't know, Shopify is a complete commerce platform that lets you start, grow, and manage a business. The subscription-based software allows anyone to set up an online store and sell their products. Shopify store owners can also sell in physical locations using Shopify the point of sale app and accompanying hardware as well. Shopify gives entrepreneurs the resources once reserved for big businesses, so upstarts, startups, and established businesses alike can sell everywhere, synchronize online, in-person sales, and effortlessly stay informed. Scaling your business is a journey of endless possibility, and Shopify helps you make your entrepreneurial dreams come true. Just go to shopify.com/lockedonnba. That's all lowercase there for a free 14-day trial and get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. Grow your business with Shopify today. Go to shopify.com/lockedonnba right now. That's shopify.com/lockedonnba. So as we keep rolling here again, we thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first listen of every day. I saw Craig Cancel was in the house tonight. Maybe you want to check in on what the Brewers are up to in the offseason. So after you're done with Locked On Bucks, you can jump across and listen to Locked On Brewers and see what those guys are up to. See what the Brew Crew are up to in the offseason. So some of these numbers with Jrue Holiday. So, I mean, you mentioned the fact that he missed some bunnies, and you also mentioned the fact that you've been a little bit, I don't know where you would be on the panic scale when it comes to Jrue Holiday, but he missed one tonight that was like a 2 feet planted on the ground, little kids layup. Like, even I'm a chance to make that shot with no defenders. Now, of course, I probably would still miss it, but, I'm a chance. I'm a legitimate chance, which you can't say too often. But he's 45% at the rim this season. This is according to Cleaning Glass. That might be before tonight. It probably is. But 45% at the rim. Last season, he was at 66%. And he's actually only ever been below 55% twice in his 12 seasons, never below 52%. So for him to be at 45% is so bizarre. And the three-point shot stuff, I'll buy. Like when he was up at around 40% last year, I was like, I don't know. And I never really pictured Jrue Holiday as a 40% three-point shooter. Now this year he's down to 32%. But when I see him missing bunnies like that, I just kind of can't get too worried about it because I'm like, this is just so weird. Like eventually he's going to start making these layups where he gets to perfect position and they're basically uncontested, right? I mean, I hope so anyway. I mean, if he doesn't, it's going to be problematic for sure. But that's the reason why I can't get too concerned about it because it's just so weird, like some of these misses that he's having.
I think the biggest concern would be, does it seem like he's not able to get to those spots anymore, right? It was a little surprising. I'm looking at his basketball reference page right now. Only 20% of his shot attempts right now are coming at the rim. Last year it was at 28%. The year before that, 34%. So that would obviously be, I'd say legitimately concerning if he's having to trade, rim shots for mid-range shots or something like that. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think not getting the rim and then not finishing at the rim. As you said, he's missed just a bunch of bunnies where it's just like, it's not like he can't get off the floor or something like that. He's getting like blocked or something like that. It's just like he's literally just missing gimmies. So, yes, I think stay tuned. I think with Chris and Jrue, they're both at the start of their third decade on Earth, and so actually I shouldn't say that. Technically their fourth decade on Earth. Your 30s are your fourth decade on Earth. So we'll see. I mean, at some point these guys, the aging curve starts to kick in. I hope it's not the case for Jrue. He's coming off a very long season. Like I said, he looked really good in the Brooklyn and that first San Antonio game. So again, is it him just sort of finding his legs, or whatever, maybe. But the good news is the Bucks are NBA champions, so we're never gonna have to relitigate the Jrue Holiday trade.
Yeah.
And is the Jrue Holiday contract going to look good in well, maybe I was going to say 3 years from now, maybe a year. I don't know. I mean, guy's age, is he going to be worth quote unquote all that much? I don't know, but it doesn't really matter because the Bucks won a championship, and I think if you try to undo obviously the trade, but even just like the fact that they extended him during last season, I mean, I think everything can work out differently, right? So that's the beauty of being an NBA champion is everything was worth it, basically, right? But obviously, if you want to repeat and continue to play at a contender's level, you're going to need your three best players to continue to play at a really high level. Obviously, we know Giannis is continuing to do that. I think Chris, I'm not really worried about Chris. He's obviously kind of getting back. I thought a couple of shots he's hit the past few games, including in the main, really starting with the second half of his first game back, right, against the Lakers, started to feel very encouraging about kind of what he can do and obviously his playmaking. And so I think for Jrue, it's just kind of getting back to what he can do. And to be honest, like I think it's a lot of he's had some really good playmaking games, like the Celtics game. He couldn't make anything right. He was 1 for 11 or something from 3 in that game, but had a ton of assists and was definitely a big part of setting up a lot of the open 3-pointers that Grayson Allen and others had in that game. So we'll see. I think it's a subplot, something to watch. And again, not meant to panic, but if you want the Bucks to have the best possible chance of winning an NBA championship, you're going to need Jrue Holiday, obviously, to be playing at a high level. And let's be honest. I mean, the odds of the Bucks repeating with Jrue Holiday being as let's say inconsistent as he was in the playoffs last year, I don't like the Bucks' chances. They're probably going to need a more consistent offensive version of Jrue Holiday than they got in the playoffs last year, even despite the fact that they won a championship. If they want to repeat, that's at least my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, all of them could give the team a nice little boost if they decide to knock down some threes in the postseason. That would be nice as well in the first couple of rounds, anyway. But no, I think that's a fair summary. Just looking through the box score tonight, obviously you get some crazy numbers. Mo Bamba minus 38 in 20 minutes. That's not looking too pretty, but it's actually minus 39. But on the other shoe, Giannis plus 38 in 23 minutes is pretty nice. And what about the plus minus king of the Milwaukee Bucks this season, George Hill, plus 32 in 18 minutes? I was just looking at these at the numbers with George Hill on the floor, and again, I don't know whether this is before tonight. I feel like it probably is, just because it's such a crazy number. But the Bucks are plus 21.9 per 100 possessions with George Hill on the floor. If you look at the box score every single night, even in the close games, somehow Hill is just out there with a plus 15, a plus 16, and it's kind of crazy. Lisa Byington mentioned it on the broadcast today during the game. He's playing 27.8 minutes per game, which is his highest mark since 2017. Now, obviously, we understand why he's had to play as much as he has over this journey. I'm sure it wasn't by design that he was going to play almost 30 minutes per game to start the season. But if you go through all the lineup data, he's in all their most used lineups. And honestly, a lot of them look pretty good. Now, again, you've been tweeting about this Giannis stuff, that the Bucks defense has actually been really good with Giannis on the floor. His on-off numbers are obviously incredible, and then it looks pretty ugly if it's not Giannis and it's just Bobby Portis on the floor. But I think we should acknowledge that George Hill, to this point at least, and I would still have some concerns that over the course of a 82-game season, you don't want to have to play him this much the entire season. But he still looks like a contributor, and this was one of the questions that we had coming into the season. Obviously, a bit of a strange / rough year for him last year.
Yeah, I think there are probably 3 things I was looking for from George Hill. I mean, I think first and foremost, defensively, does he still have enough athleticism? And he's obviously savvy. He knows how to defend. His brain knows how to defend. Can his body still do what needs to be done? And I think I felt generally pretty encouraged by what we've seen so far. And then I think offensively, we joke. I mean, he shot 48% or whatever it was 2 years ago from 3. We're not expecting him to shoot that high. He's a career 38% shooter. Happily take that. He entered tonight's game at 37%. And I think part of the question was just like, is he going to shoot enough Like because he's not a guy who really hunts shots. And at times you're just like, man, George, feel free to put the ball up. Don't be too bashful. So came into tonight's game at 56% true shooting, so very solid efficiency there. Efficiency again, or sorry, the usage rate, a career low, I think 12.5% coming into tonight's game. So that problem still exists, but I think when you look at just some of the I think he's still shown flashes of the athleticism that we saw from him a couple years ago. He's obviously always been a little bit bigger for a point guard, but even at the age of 35, I mean, we've seen him get to the rack for dunks. We've seen him get to the rim for layups. Again, you're going to give him the ball and tell him to just like go get buckets. Well, maybe not. But I think he's been a guy that has, been able to get to the rim and still show that he can finish. I mean, again, not big volume, but 27% of his shots have come at the rim. Career, he's a 24% guy, shots coming at the rim. So whereas Jrue Holiday is going kind of in the wrong direction, George Hill's actually stayed at a pretty good level. 2 years ago in Milwaukee, he was at 30%, so it's a little bit higher, but still 27%. And then he's finishing at 75% at the rim. So it's like, oh, okay. And he's got a couple dunks this year. So we'll see. I mean, he had, I think, 2 total dunks all of last year. In 672 minutes, he's got 444 minutes already here in Milwaukee and has 2 dunks. So yeah, I think what we've seen from George Hill has been encouraging. And if you told me just like, hey, he'll keep doing this the rest of the year at these rates, defending the way we've seen, and he can stay healthy, sign me up. I mean, for me, it's just, can he stay on the floor? Can he stay healthy, especially given his age? And hopefully he just has this left in the tank when they get to the playoffs.
Yeah, well, it's always the case when you sign these older players. You just hope you get to the end of the season and whatever you sign them for, whatever the contract is, you still want it. You still want it on the books. But that's not always the case with some of these subscriptions that you may have. Sometimes you forget about them. Sometimes you simply don't want them. And Truebill is a new app that can help you identify some of those subscriptions that you don't need, want, or simply forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 a year with Truebill. It's incredible, because companies make subscriptions hard to cancel. Truebill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts and Truebill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap. And your Truebill concierge is there when you need them to cancel unwanted subscriptions, so you don't have to. Truebill has over 2 million users and has helped save over 100 million smackers. So don't fall for the subscription scams. Start canceling today. Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. Go right now. Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA, and it could save you thousands a year. Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. And because we're in the business of saving money, our friends over at RockAuto.com, you know about this. You can save up to 30%, 50%, even 100% on the same parts that you could just buy from a chain store. But go to RockAuto.com. You'll be able to navigate the very easy-to-use catalog for brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, even new carpets. We've got an example here for you. A Honda Odyssey fuel pump is $353 from a chain store. It's $216 at RockAuto.com. I'm sure we have a listener of the pod or a viewer of the pod that has a Honda Odyssey. I'm sure we do. And they'll be listening to this and thinking, that's unbelievable. I need to go to RockAuto.com right now. So be like those people and go to RockAuto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box so they know we sent you? Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. RockAuto.com. So there's some schedule, let's say, I don't know how to describe this. There's some schedule stuff that we should acknowledge when we read out this stat, but I just like it. With Jrue Holiday, Chris Middleton, and Giannis in the lineup, the Bucks are 6-0. Undefeated. Never lost, as LeVar Ball would say, which I love. And, you always talk about these different lineup combinations that you can look at. We always look at the defense that we've come to know and love from these Milwaukee Bucks. Always been in one of the top 5 teams around the mark. Last year, a little bit sketchy at times, but ultimately in the postseason, a good defensive team. How many minutes do those 3 need to play on the floor together before we can acknowledge any of these numbers that we're seeing that are looking very good and aren't just completely out of whack because of this one game against the Orlando Magic where they led by 140 points at one stage? How many games do we need to see before we can acknowledge these numbers?
Well, let's see. I mean, we've got kind of a more difficult stretch coming up. So I'd say after the next 5 games or so, let's hope the numbers hold up. I think obviously the Pistons game on Wednesday, you hope you take care of business there, and then Friday you're in Denver against the Nuggets. Nikola Jokic has missed, I think, a couple games here, so I don't know. I don't think he has a serious injury, but we'll see if he's back for that game. Obviously, Denver without Jamal Murray, as we knew, and now Michael Porter Jr. Sounds like he has a pretty serious back injury that may require surgery. I saw some headlines about today. So, again, you're catching the Nuggets probably at an advantageous time. And then you're in Indiana and then home to host the Hornets, then play in Toronto, and then you get the Heat in Milwaukee on December 4th. So I think that's a mixture of home road games. You've got certainly some better competition in there. I would not say those are gimmies, so I think you kind of look at those games. You obviously hope you can win your 5th straight here against the Pistons. And then you look at those next 5. I think if you just take 3 out of 5, or maybe even 4 out of 5, if you take 4 out of 5, I think you start to feel like, you're really starting to cook with gas here a little bit. So yeah, let's kind of let that sample get a little bit bigger. But obviously it's important that now we're finally seeing actual rotations that, maybe not tonight in the 4th quarter, but during non-garbage time, we're finally seeing combinations that the Bucks are going to be using throughout the season, assuming injuries don't crop up. So pretty much all the combinations that we're seeing in games here over the last little while are at least representative of things that we'll hopefully see in the playoffs as well. So yeah, I think good to see the numbers start to creep in the right direction for sure.
Yeah, no beef stew for this game with the Pistons either. I saw someone tweeted out today. I know we were discussing that Giannis seemed a little bit annoyed by something Isaiah Stewart did in a game last year, I believe it was. Isaiah Stewart, not to be messed with, but let me just point out that he's being looked at as a bad guy for that incident where he stood over Blake Griffin. No, not in my books. That makes him a good guy. And look, he got punched in the face. So look, he lost the plot a little bit there. There's no doubt about it. But I didn't think Isaiah Stewart's a bad guy. Not at all. And if you stand over Blake Griffin and don't let him get away with his bullshit that he tries to do on a nightly basis, you're good in my books. But having said that, I'm still glad he's not there.
I mean, Giannis confronted him in that game, as you were referring to last year. I think the video I was looking at today, it seemed like it was due to a moment where they were kind of boxing out and Giannis got a little off balance and Isaiah Stewart basically pushed him to the ground and kind of landed on him. So as much as I enjoyed him going at LeBron, as much as I enjoy him going at Blake Griffin, I mean, if you've gone at Giannis, you are instantly an enemy of Bucks Nation, no matter what you've done in these other games. So yeah, I don't know. Isaiah Stewart, again, kind of taking that mantle, ironically, from Blake Griffin, as far as kind of bring a little bit of extra cheap shot sauce for when the Pistons play the Bucks. So maybe good riddance to Isaiah Stewart here, that we don't have to see him on Wednesday.
Okay, fair enough.
By the way, here just for context, talking about the Chris Giannis Jrue numbers, 161 possessions so far this year, plus 24 net rating. We'll take that. That's obviously encouraging. And that was before tonight. So those numbers are going to get better, presumably, when we check them tomorrow. Last year, 2,000 possessions together, plus 13 net rating overall between those 3 guys. And actually, now I'm curious to see what they were in the playoffs as well. Those were the regular season numbers. But in the playoffs,
it just says champions. Just says champions. Well, it doesn't even have numbers.
It's funny because the playoffs were so long. Guess how many possessions they had together? They had 2,000. They had 1,999 possessions together in the regular season over 72 games. Guess how many they had in the playoffs? Do you want to take a wild guess?
Well, they played about a quarter of the games, but they played more minutes, so it's going to be a bit more than a quarter. If I do the maths, so let's say 611.
1,125 possessions together in the playoffs.
Unbelievable.
That's like another half season of, at least in terms of them playing together. Obviously, as
Bud
you said,
wasn't messing around
a
with
bit
those
different.
rotations, Frank.
No. They were plus 12 net rating. They had a 112.5 offensive rating, which by last year's standards was actually not very good. This year it's a lot better because offense is just overall down. They were only in the 33rd percentile in terms of offensive ratings. But defensively, Kane, 100.6 defensive rating last year in the playoffs with that group of three over 1,100 possessions. That is in the 100th percentile, i.e., that was at the very tippy top, absolute best performing defensive lineups. And you look at what they did across the board, across four factors, they were at the absolute apex in terms of defensive rebound rate, only 82% defensive rebound rate. They were at the 96th percentile in free throw rate allowed, 88th percentile in terms of turnovers, which is interesting because the Bucks are not typically a team that forces a lot of turnovers. Tonight was a little different story. 88th percentile in turnover rate, 86th percentile in terms of effective field goal percentage allowed. So, yeah, just build to that. Do that again in the playoffs. You're going to like your odds.
Yep, it's almost safe to bet on the Bucks again. But if you want to bet on other things, you've got a daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs on the Locked On Bets podcast, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. Just as we wrap this up, Frank, we just in my inbox got a medical update on Semi Ojeleye from Bucks PR. It says Milwaukee Bucks forward Semi Ojeleye sustained a right soleus muscle injury during Friday night's win versus Oklahoma City, underwent an MRI and subsequent examination by team physician Dr. Carol Vetter of the Freud and Medical College of Wisconsin Health Network, which confirmed a strained soleus muscle. That's a lot of words there. Anyway, he's got a calf strain. It says that he's going to be sidelined for at least 3 weeks and then reevaluated. So, I don't know what's going on. Look, he wasn't playing that well anyway. I get it. People will say, oh, so what? But, you were hoping that he was going to be a guy that could start to find some rhythm and show a little bit that he can be a guy that you can play moving forward. I mean, it says at least 3 weeks he's going to be reevaluated. So we're probably not going to see him again. Well, we might not see him again before Christmas. That's a significant time on the sideline for Semi Ojeleye, which it's a shame.
Yeah, and again, I think he's a guy that you were trying to figure out how does he fit into this rotation, right? And does he have the sort of defensive juice and enough perimeter shot making to be kind of part of that, small lineup that you're obviously you have to figure out this year after losing PJ Tucker coming out of last year's playoff run. Obviously, PJ was crucial towards the Bucks and their ability to play those small Giannis lineups. Best defense in the league. They have like a 99 defensive rating. Draymond Green, who I think if you took a vote right now, would probably be defensive player of the year for whatever that's worth at this point in the season. Exact same 102.3 defensive rating when he's on the floor as when Giannis is on the floor for the Bucks. The difference being that the Warriors are actually even better defensively this year with him on the bench. They're like +3. They're like 3 points per 100 better with Draymond on the bench, which is, kind of wild. Versus Giannis, the Bucks are 19 points per 100 worse defensively with Giannis on the bench, which is partly a Bobby Portis referendum problem, as we've talked about. Giannis and Bobby together are great and actually defensively are right around the same numbers that I just quoted you. So Giannis can cover up all of Bobby Portis' defensive problems, but once Giannis is off the floor, Bobby Portis lineups, I think, are like 96 offensive rating and 119 defensive rating this year. So it's a problem. It was a problem last year as well, although they were much better offensively. So yeah, I mean, I think, Shemi obviously was in there for his defense. He's now out again. It's not like he's your lockdown rim protector 4 guy or something like that. But especially when paired with Giannis, you obviously hope that he could be part of some useful lineups when helping some of these other guys rest. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see who gets an opportunity now with that extended spell on the sidelines coming for Shemi. Jordan Nwora missed a couple games in a row, DNPs. He's been back now, played 26 minutes tonight. Obviously a garbage time game, 14 points on 13 shots, 7 rebounds, a couple blocks tonight for Jordan Nwora. A potential guy that obviously can benefit from Shemi being out. And then obviously it's like, Thanasis might be the most like for like guy just in terms of defensive size. And obviously we saw Thanasis a fair bit at the beginning of the season when they had all the injuries. But I'm curious. I mean, again, it's like, especially with these bench guys, like Bud's going to give everybody chances at various points. So I assumed Jordan Nwora was going to get another chance at some point in the near future anyway. But obviously now with Shemi on the sideline, good news for at least for Jordan Nwora's opportunities, and Rodney Hood as well, right? Who's had some injury problems and generally hasn't been that impressive. He's another guy who's now back in the lineup and available. So we'll see if it's an opportunity for him as well. Mamu had a good game for the Herd last night. I think he had like 22 points on 14 shots. Was back with everybody else. Yorgos Kalaitzakis actually played tonight. Justin Robinson, that trio was back in the building. I think they were like suited up for 5 straight games or 5 straight nights. I think they were suited up for basketball games between the Herd and the Bucks. So we'll see. I don't know that Mamu is going to start playing now again just because Shemi is out, but we'll see. Obviously, you guys talked about with Justin last night that Brooke alluded to having a timeline in mind and a target date in mind. I thought just him showing up on camera to talk about his injury situation was a positive because, you look at Michael Porter and talking about him maybe needing surgery. At least we're going in the different direction with Brooke and seemingly pointing towards progress, heading towards a return at some point. So I don't know. I think we said on this pod, like my arbitrary guess has been around like December 1st. That date's coming up pretty soon. So hopefully he'll continue to progress, not have any setbacks. And obviously getting Brooke Lopez back would be a nice way to make up for the fact that you lost Shemi Ojeleye.
Yeah, or Robin Lopez just stays in Milwaukee and doesn't go back with the Orlando Magic. That would also be nice. I saw a lot of people tweeting about that. Let's make the trade happen. I know the Bucks did a lot of stuff, whether it was social media or all kinds of stuff with Robin Lopez, obviously.
I saw Mamu had his jersey after the game tonight, which seems like a random dude to end up with Robin Lopez's jersey, but maybe Rolo gave his jersey to Brooke and then Brooke just threw it at Mamu or something like that. I don't know. I'm not sure how Mamu got the jersey, but I'll have to do some off-day sleuthing on that topic.
Yeah, I thought it was a little strange. I mean, I assume they don't know each other. So, so strange stuff. Anyway, Mamu, he wasn't playing tonight. He wanted to be involved somehow. So good for him. He still managed to get on the social media channels. But we'll leave it there. One night off, then the Bucks are back again. 7 p.m. tip. The 5-game road homestand, comes to an end. They're 4-0 so far, so hopefully they extend that winning streak to 5 games and go 3 games over 500. That would be wild stuff, crazy stuff as the Bucks start to climb in the standings a little bit. We'll leave it there. We'll be back tomorrow for Frank and myself. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you tomorrow.